Welcome to the DataPlatformGeeks webinar. Today's topic is Azure Analysis Services and Automation by Khushboo, Gupta, and Kane Conway from Microsoft. I'm Manohar Puna. I'm the host today, and Satya is helping us with moderating the webinar. Before we start the webinar, I have a few quick slides. DataPlatformGeeks, you're already a member of this community. So this is a subsidiary of eDomino Solutions, which has companies like SQLMaestros and Peopleware India. They specialize in training pan-India and also online. So please do go and explore. There's a lot of learning content available on their sites. The conference has been announced, the Data Platform Summit. This is the 4th year of the conference. This happens every year in August in Bangalore. It's happening from 9th to 11th of August, the 3-day conference. And also there are 2 pre-conference training days on 7th and 8th. These are full-day training. The venue is Hotel Radisson Blu, which is formerly the Hotel Park Plaza. It's a 3-day pure learning event. There'll be no marketing as such. And the 2-day pre-conference trainings will be full-day extensive trainings on a particular topic. And there'll be 7 tracks, more than 100 sessions, and more than 50 speakers coming from all around the world. People from data group from Microsoft, experts from all around the world like MVPs, MCMs, and industry experts will be there at this conference. So this is the best opportunity to learn from these experts and also network with them. Let me quickly introduce you to the core team behind the Data Platform Geeks. Amit Bansal, the founder and president. Myself, I'm Manohar Puna, I'm the vice president. Avnish Panchal, Prince Rastogi, Sandeep Pani, Yogeshwar Phul, and Surbhi Agarwal are the core team members, and they are the backbone of this community. They help us build this community and also help you attend these events and organize these events all around the online and also all around the India. Also, we have the eDomino teams which help us in organizing these events. A special thanks to Microsoft, who have been a great support in building this community, in providing speakers and also speaking at these events. A big thanks to Microsoft for being a great support. If you are attending this webinar, you would have already registered on DataPlatformGeeks.com. There's a lot of free technical content like blogs, videos, labs, and magazines available on the site. Please go ahead and explore this site because there'll be a lot of content that will help you learn and extend your career. Also join the biggest, largest SQL group on Facebook, the SQL Geeks. It's the Data Platform Geeks official SQL group, Facebook group. You can post your questions and also answer some questions if you're interested. So please do join these groups and become a member and be part of the largest SQL group and the biggest community. And I'll quickly hand over to the speaker, Kane and Khushboo. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Manohar. Hey, guys, are you able to hear me, guys?
Your volume is a bit low.
Okay, is it better now?
Nah, still. Can you pull the mic towards you?
1 second. Okay, is it better?
Yep, a little better. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and share screen.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we can see your screen.
Okay, thanks. Hey guys, welcome to today's session. Good afternoon. So today we'll be taking you through the introduction of Azure Analysis Services and the automation options available for Azure Analysis Services. So today the speakers will be Kane, who is me, and my colleague Khushboo, where we both work for Microsoft over here. I'm going to hand this over to Khushboo to talk about the introduction of Azure Analysis.
Hello, everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Khushboo.
Okay, great. So we'll quickly go over the agenda. Today we are going to talk about what is Azure Analysis Services, about basically the intro, in which all regions we can create the service, which is typically your supported regions, what all data source the service supports. Since it's a paid service, we are going to look at the pricing structure and the scalability factor. We will also talk about the security part, how security is handled in Azure Analysis Services, what all tools and existing clients you can use to pull data from Azure Analysis Services in your applications. And lastly, we are going to talk about the new tool, which is Azure Analysis Services Web Designer, along with some of the demos where we are going to show you how you can automate your database, your tables processing, and how you can use the Azure automation functions as well. So let's get started. Okay, so when we say Azure Analysis Services, right, what does that we mean with that? So Azure Analysis Services is a cloud-based platform as a service, right? It's a cloud-based service which is provided by Microsoft, which provides a high-quality enterprise-grade data modeling scheme to the cloud. It's a PaaS as a service, which is also called as platform as a service. It basically, with the help of Azure AS, you can transform your complex data into an actionable insights. With the high optimized OLAP data engine, you can even create a rich semantic layer between complex, different, and multiple or large data sources. So Azure Analysis Services, as you can see, it's pretty much is an enterprise grade, or enterprise supported service, which can be used by any of our developers as well. Currently, Azure Analysis Services pretty much supports all the features which are available in your on-premise SQL Server Analysis Services Enterprise Edition. But there is a specific feature which is like backup and restore, which is currently not available for Azure AS. In case if you need to do a backup and restore of your existing Azure Analysis Services model, you cannot use the backup and restore the way we can use it in your on-premise service. For that, you need to create your own storage account, and so that you can store the data in the blob over there. But apart from that, you can pretty much do everything else what is supported in your on-premise in this cloud service as well. For example, you can create partitions, you can manage your row-level security, you can create bi-directional relationships, aggregations, everything. So currently, Azure AS supports only tabular instance. We don't have any support for multi-dimensional. And even in case of tabular models, the current supportability or the current supported compatibility levels are 1200 and 1400, which is nothing but your SQL Server 2016 and SQL Server 2017 respectively. In order to pull data from multiple data sources, you can use two modes. One is the in-memory mode, which I'm sure you guys might be aware of, because that's the one which is used by your on-premise analysis services as well. And the other mode is the direct query mode. So using these two modes, the reason behind introducing the direct query mode is the response time for executing your queries would be much, much faster. Okay, so we say it's a Azure Analysis Services, right? Let's have a quick look how it is better when it comes with Azure, right? So when we talk about Azure Analysis Services, you can pull data from multiple data sources, be it your cloud or be it your on-premise data sources. So for some of the cloud-based data sources, we have support for SQL Azure, for SQL Azure Data Warehouse, and for Azure Blob Storage. But since you're talking about Azure, we need to ensure that the security is also taken care, right? Which is definitely one of the important feature of this service, because the entire authentication and the security mechanism is handled by Azure Active Directory, which ensures that you're able to provide the right access and the role-based access to the users, and give them the appropriate access for your critical data that is saved in your models. Azure Analysis Services can also be integrated with the Azure Data Factory pipeline, which basically includes an activity ID to load the data into the model, right? Apart from that, we have, since we are talking about Azure Analysis Services, we are going to, kind of talk about in the later slides about automation and Azure functions, where we have certain demos as well to show it to you. But in a nutshell, these Azure automation and Azure functions own custom code. Okay, so coming to a pricing factor over here, since it's a cloud-based paid service, we have currently 3 tiers available to purchase this service, which is developer, basic, and standard. So in each of the tier, the cost kind of varies based on what kind of memory that tier is giving to the end user, what kind of QPUs are available, right? So based on that, the plan structure, the cost will vary, and it's a hourly used service. So basically, you pay for what you use, and it's not something which you cannot stop in between. Whenever you want to use it, you can start the service. Whenever you want to don't use it, you can pause the service, and you will be charged only for the hourly basis. So over here, I have shown an example of how a developer tier will looks like, right? So you will see if you're purchasing a developer tier for Azure AS, you will get a QPUs of 10. It will have a 3 GB of memory, and the pricing would be like close to INR 8.73 per hour, right? So which means if you're using a service for an hour, you will be charged INR 8.73. And the biggest benefit that we have for this is you can always scale up these tires. You can move to a higher tire. You can upgrade your tires, right? But at the same time, you cannot downgrade from a higher tire to a lower one. So that is something which we need to be cautious about. But yes, within the same tires, you can always scale up or scale down based on your requirements, based on your business requirements. And you can even pause the service whenever you don't need it. So just a little bit touch point on the scaling factor. Basically, when we say scaling, right? So what we mean by that is that we have multiple replicas at the background for the service, right? So when you purchase this, let's say a developer tier, you have multiple replicas where your model which you have deployed to this service will be synchronized, right? So even when you're running the queries, the response time would be much, much faster as compared to the on-premise mode. Okay, so moving back to the data sources part, Azure Analysis Services, as I had mentioned, currently supports the on-premise data sources and the cloud data sources as well. So you can pretty much create a hybrid data model where you can pull the data from cloud as well as from the on-premise in the same model. But the only thing which we need to kind of take care is that this model will only be leveraging the 1400 compatibility models. It cannot use a lower version. And in the previous slide, I talked about direct query, right? So just to give you a quick insights about it, when it comes to direct query, not all the data sources are supported. We have these few data sources which are listed in the slide, which are currently supported by Azure AS in direct query mode, right? So in memory is different, direct query is different. So direct query will be basically whenever the processing is done or you're trying to pull the data, we are going to send the request directly to your data sources. We are not storing any data in our Azure Analysis Services databases, right? So nothing is stored, only the metadata in case of direct query is stored to Azure AS databases. The actual data resides in your data sources only, right? So some of these data sources which are supported in the direct query mode by the services, your Azure SQL database, your Azure SQL Data Warehouse, SQL Server Data Warehouse, Oracle, and lastly your Teradata. So we may see some more data sources coming up, but as of now, we have only this much which is available. So this is something which is new because up till now, when it comes to the the on-premise one, we only use like on-premise data sources. But with this cloud-based service, you can even create a hybrid solution for your business requirements, and you can pretty much pull the data from cloud as well as on-premise in the same model. You don't need to create different models to get this done. Okay, so these are some of the regions where currently this service can be created. Uh, Earlier, it was like, the regions were a bit less. We didn't have the East US and the West US, but recently we introduced that, and we introduced even in the government cloud, we introduced a couple of regions where the service can be created. So I've split the regions into three, which is Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific. So under Americas, you can see we have the North Central US, South Central US, West Central US, and Canada Central. And we also have the East and the West US, along with Brazil South. Specifically for the government cloud, we have the service can be created only as of now in Arizona and Texas. When it comes to Europe, you can create this service in North Europe, UK South, and West Europe. For Asia Pacific, it is your Southeast Australia, Japan East, Southeast Asia, and lastly your West India. Okay, so here are some of the familiar tools which can be used in the service to manage your models, to develop and create your models, or even connect to your existing, models which are deployed to Azure Analysis Services. So I'm pretty much sure you guys would be familiar with SQL Server Data Tools, because this is one of the legacy tools which has been used even in on-premise analysis services to create or deploy the models to Azure AS service, to your on-premise service. The same one you can use in your Azure Analysis Services as well. You can create and deploy your models. You can develop your models, create your models, and deploy it to your Azure AS service. The only thing which we need to take care is that the model will be of 1400 compatibility. You can use SQL Server Management Studio, which should be 2017 or above. We don't have 2016 or 2014. Cannot be used to connect to your Azure Analysis Services instance. It has to be 2017 or above, which can be leveraged to connect to your Azure Analysis Services service and manage the models or the servers over there. Apart from that, you can even use the PowerShell scripts to pause the service, to create your Azure Analysis Services servers, or manage the resources over there, right? Or manage your existing databases, your models. Everything can be done using a PowerShell script as well. We do have a demo for this, which we'll be showing you in a little while. So over here, if you would have noticed, I've mentioned something called as TMSL script, which is nothing but your tabular model scripting language, which can be used to do all this automation part, whether it's your managing your databases, processing your databases, automating the processing part. Everything can be done with the help of these scripts, which you can manage from SSMS or from PowerShell both. Okay, so apart from that, some of the clients which can be used to pull data from Azure Analysis Services is you can use your Power BI, you can use your SQL Server Reporting Services, Excel, or even the Tableau for that matter, right? So the way these clients will pull the data from Azure Analysis Services will be using some of the providers like your MSO Lab, ADOMD, or AMO. So which means you need to have these drivers installed when you are using this to pull the data from Azure AS. Okay, so coming back to a very important part, which is about security, right? So we have seen the scenarios where people are very much worried that, okay, why we should be pulling or pushing our data, to specifically for the secure environments, people are not very convinced to push their data to cloud service, right? But in this case, the thing which we want to emphasize on is that Azure AS is a completely secured service. When it comes to any kind of authentication part, everything is handled or managed by Azure Active Directory. So basically, when you create this service, you need to log into your Azure portal, and it basically takes your organizational account, or you can even use a normal Azure subscription account, with the help of which you can create this service. So when it comes to, once the service is created, by default, it will take your, logged in Azure subscription account as the main admin account, right? So which means that account is validated using a Azure Active Directory. And in case if it's already been synced up with your local AD or your local Active Directory, you can even use that as well. So from the data security standpoint, as I mentioned, when it comes to direct query mode to pull the data, we are not storing any of the data into the Azure Analysis Services databases. Nothing is stored in the AS databases. Only the metadata is stored. And from the data standpoint, everything is stored still in your data sources, right? So if your data source is your on-premise data source or any other cloud data source, it will remain over there, and we are not storing that data into AS databases. We are only storing the metadata. And for storing this metadata, Azure AS uses the Azure blob storage. And all the data files within the blob are encrypted using Azure blob server-side encryption, which is called as SSE as well, right? So you can see that the data from the data standpoint, everything is pretty secured, and the encryption mechanism is pretty strong when it comes to Azure AS. Now, this is the cloud side of the part, right? What about if we are pulling data from on-premise data sources? So when we talk about pulling data from on-premise data sources, so we basically need to think about how this cloud-based service can talk to your on-premise data sources, right? So for that, we leverage something called as on-premise data gateway, right? So you need to install on-premise data gateway on your machine, and then this on-premise data gateway will be a medium for Azure AS to talk to your on-premise data sources. So just to give you a little bit insight, how it works is this cloud service will have its own cloud-based gateway service, which will basically pull the query, right, from the Azure AS, which will be encrypted using certain credentials. And it will send this query to the Azure bus service. Now the on-premise data gateway will be polling this Azure bus service after every few seconds to see if there's any pending request. So this pending request is nothing but it's the query which is being sent by the Azure AS to connect to your on-premise data source. So once the on-premise data gateway will poll to this Azure bus service and it will see a pending request, it will pick that query from there and it will decrypt it using the credentials mentioned over there and connect to your on-premise data sources. After that, it will pull the data, send it back to the gateway, and gateway will send it back to your Azure bus service or to your, later on to your Azure Analysis Services as well. And this entire communication from gateway to Azure bus service, everything is encrypted. So nobody can kind of peek in to get this data, what is happening, because this entire conversation is an encrypted communication. So you can see over here, I've clearly mentioned all communication to and from the gateway is an encrypted communication. Okay, so coming back to another part, which is Azure Analysis Services Web Designer. So this is a new tool which has been introduced by Microsoft for, specifically you can say it's basically for developers who can manage and create their models from the browser itself. So up till now, we have been used to use SQL Server data tools or SSMS, to kind of go back and create our models and deploy it over there. But using the Azure Analysis Services Web Designer, you can create, manage, update your models from the browser itself, right? So whether it's about creating a new measure and adding it to your existing models, whether it's about creating a new model and deploying it to the service, or about generating or viewing your text queries, modeling queries, everything can be managed from the browser itself. So if you don't have SSDT installed, you don't need to worry about it anymore if you have the Azure Web Designer. But a couple of things, to kind of make sure you're able to use Azure Web Designer is Azure Web Designer supports currently, when it comes to data sources. So if you want to create a model using Azure Web Designer, you can use only Azure SQL database, Azure SQL data warehouse, or Power BI file, which is PBIX file as a data source, right? And in order to use Azure Analysis Services Web Designer, you need to have Azure service created using either developer or standard tier only. It doesn't support the basic, right? So either you can use you can purchase a developer tier or you can purchase a standard tier. Okay. So I'm going to show you, a quick demo how you can use Azure Web Analysis Services, and then we are going to move to the later part, which is all about automation. Okay. So this is my Azure portal where I've actually went ahead and created an Azure service. So let me just show you how you can create one. So you need to sign into your Azure portal using your appropriate Azure account. and you can search for something called as Azure Analysis Services. So here's the one. So if you say create, so you can see you get the different regions where you can create the service, and it pretty much covers the regions that I've shown you in my slide. So let's see. Okay. And here's the pricing tier, right? We have been talking about basic, which is B1 and B2. Then you have the standard, which is S0, S1, S2, S4. And then lastly, your developer, which is D1, right? So you can see the entire details over here. Okay, this is for different tiers. So currently for using Azure Web Designer, either it has to be a standard, either one of them, or your developer. Just this one. Okay, so you can go ahead, select the tier as per your business requirements, and then you can go ahead and say create. So once it's done, you will be able to see your Azure AS service created. Let me just go back to the service that I have created. So this is the one that I have. So over here, you can see you can pause the service, you can start it whenever you want to use it. And based on the consumption, the hourly consumption, the service will be charged. This will be your Azure AS server name, which needs to be used when you're deploying your models from SSDT, or when you're trying to connect to manage your models from, or manage your databases from SSMS. Okay. This will show you the pricing tier, whatever you have selected. It's S1, S0, B1, B2, or D1, which is the developer one. And in case if you're using some of the client tools and you want to, kind of select that, okay, what should be the connection string look like? You can take the connection strings from here. You can copy it and put it to your applications. So this is the one which I was talking about to design your models, which is the Web Designer Review. So let's click on that. Okay, so you can see this is showing the the current service which is active for me. And let's try to create a model over here. So it gives you three options: either Azure SQL Database, Azure SQL Data Warehouse, or Power BI Desktop File. Okay, so I'm going to use the first one. Let's see. Let's select this one. So it has already picked up my Azure SQL database, which is currently associated with my subscription. This is the one that I have. I'm going to use authentication to sign in. And this is the only database which currently I have available in that Azure SQL database. In case if you have more, it will give you the, from the drop down, you can select which one you want to use. So let's say next. Okay, it's a wrong server name. Okay, so it's done. It is showing all the list of the views and the tables which are available. So we can select which one we want to use for this particular model, right? So let's select this one, model, and let's pick up the order details from here. So based on the number of tables and the amount of data it has, it may take a bit while. Okay, meanwhile, this is trying to fetch the data from here. Let's do one more thing. since we have another option to create or pull the data using a Power BI desktop file, so meanwhile we can try to create one small PBX file and see how we can leverage that to create a model. Okay. So even when you're importing data using Power BI desktop file and you want to use that in Azure Web Designer, currently you can use only 4 data sources, which is again your SQL Azure database, your SQL Azure data warehouse, Oracle, and Teradata. Okay, so using these import options, you can pull data from either of these 4 data sources, and you can create a PBX file and upload that PBX file to get the model in your Azure Web Designer. So I'm going to use this again to see what's there in this one. Okay, so it didn't ask me for the credentials as of now because I already have this connection created in my PBA desktop file. So it has just taken the credentials from there. But typically, in case if it's a first time connection to your Azure SQL database using your Power BI desktop, it will ask you to authenticate, which means you need to put up the credentials, whether you want to authenticate using Windows SQL or basically database or Windows, right? Since it's Azure SQL, we have an option only to use database and no Windows credentials are allowed. So I'm going to select, let's say, customer details, only these 2 for the time being. Let's load it. All right, so meanwhile, this is also done. Okay. So we're going to come back to this screen just in a few minutes, right? Let's go back to the Azure Web Designer where the model, all the tables have been loaded. So let's go back to the model part. Let me do this. Let me just click on arrange all, right? So basically, if you click on arrange all, based on how the relationship has been defined within these tables, it will automatically create a database diagram, right? In case if you want to edit the relationships between the tables or the columns, you can always do that using the edit relationship link, right? You can select whether you want to have a many to one, many to many, sorry, many to one, one to many, what kind of relationship you want to define over here. So once this is done, you can just save your layout. And I'm just going to go back and refresh this page to see if the model has been created. Okay, so we do have one, right? So you can see the compatibility level is 1400, and this is the SQL demo 2, which we had created. Okay, yeah, right. So the same one you can even use to, pull the data using this model. You can directly pull the data in your Power BI desktop reports, or you can even use it in SSDT as well. So on the open in option, you can select either of these options to get the data directly to your Excel, to your Power BI desktop, or to your Visual Studio project. Right? Let's say if I open it over here. Okay, so we got the PBX file you can see for SQL demo. I can just open it. I need to have a Power BI desktop installed to get this done. Okay, so you can see pretty much we have all those tables which were a part of your models, right? So you can see, you can select any of the columns that you want to select, and you can design your reports as per your business needs. So by default in Power BI Desktop, it always tries to represent a data in a map, but you can select the appropriate visual that you need to display, and you can do it. So over here, I'm just going to select table for the time being. Just delete this one, select this back, and change it to table, right? So you can see we have the data, and any kind of aggregated value tries to use it as sum. So we can always uncheck it and say, don't summarize. Right, so now you can see for every product number, we have the name, the product ID, the model ID, and what quantity has been purchased for that particular product number, right? So I can save this file and I can publish it to my Power BI service directly. Now, I'll just go back to the previous one where we have actually pulled the data from your Azure SQL database, right? So in this one, you'll just quickly select something like a customer ID, first name, and a little bit about the sales order, which might be, say, order date and a sales order number for the time being, and put it back to table. So since this was a date format, you can see it has already taken it as a date hierarchy. So either you can use it as an order date, or you can even use the hierarchy in case if that is more helpful. Let's just check how the sales order number looks like. Okay, it's already set to do not summarize. So this is good. So I'm just going to save this file. Say SQL demo 3. Save it. So it's done. I'll go back to my Azure AS service and I'll go to the web designer one more time. And this time while creating my model, instead of using Azure SQL database, I'll use a Power BI desktop file. So you can see it asks for selecting the PBX file to import the data into the model. So we can select this one, import. So it will try to import all the model which is there in the PBX file. And later on, it is going to save it to your Azure Analysis Service. So based on how complex the data model is and how much data it has, it may take a few seconds to import the data back to your Azure AS service. Okay, so you can see we have the exact same tables which I had in the PBI desktop over here. Right. So this is how you can actually leverage your PBX files as well to create the models directly to your Azure AS service. Or if you already have the models deployed to Azure service, you can directly leverage it in any of the client tools like Power BI Desktop or to your Excel or SSDT to build the models and use it for further information. So with this, I'm going to hand it over back to my colleague Kane, who is going to take you, towards the Azure automation and the processing part.
Thanks, Khushboo. Since we know what we went through the introduction of Azure Analysis Services. We were able to look at a model. I mean, usually everybody's got the process of SSAS is complicated. SSAS needs a lot of work. You need a lot of investment, and you would follow that thought process while creating a model. But you saw just now that you can create a simple model using a web browser itself or using your Power BI desktop. So now that we have the model, the next option comes is how do we process the data? How do we get the latest data if we want to use it? So with that being said, what is processing basically? In analysis services, all the data, if we're using an import mode, is stored within analysis services itself. Therefore, processing would be to actually get the latest data into analysis services. And maybe if you have certain calculated measures, it will perform those operations and update the calculated measures based on the updated data. I want to bring up 2 points over here when it comes to processing. The first one is when we deploy analysis services projects from SSDD. By default, we usually have 3 processing options available. That's default, full, and do not process. The default value is set to default, which basically is process if the data or if the table is unprocessed or in a partially processed state. Recently, we encountered few issues over here where there were a lot of models that were deployed. They were designed and deployed, and everything worked fine. But when the end users went ahead and updated the model to maybe added some new calculations and then redeployed it, we didn't see the latest data, even though it was set to default. So the reason for this is nothing but that the data is in a process state. So only the metadata was changed. There's no data related changes that happen. So because of that, SSAS doesn't reprocess the data. So a recommended approach to this would actually be to set it to do not process, then go to Management Studio or use PowerShell and then process the database. So talking about different processing options available, we can process the data at 3 different levels. At the database level, which is going to be a large amount of memory is going to be required, at the table level, and at the partition level. Now, you need to understand that an Azure Analysis Services is actually an in-memory solution. So when you actually have processing options, or whenever you set it to do a full process, it's going to require the amount of memory available to currently respond to all the queries coming in, and it's going to require double the amount of memory to process that particular database. So take an example that you picked a analysis services model that has about 5 GB the size is about 5 GB. So if we add caching into it, it's going to be at least another 6 or 7 GB of memory usage or even more. When we do a processing to that, it's actually going to take at least about 2 to 3 times the amount of memory required. So this is very important to note when you're designing a processing solution for Azure Analysis Services. If you process a full database, it's going to require about 12 GB, and therefore you have to extend your tier from S0, which is about 10 GB, to an S1, which is about 25 GB. Instead, the other processing options available would be to use the process partition and just incrementally update the data instead of doing a process database. So it's very, very important to design the right processing option for your data. The different methods of processing in analysis services. Basically, you can process it using Management Studio, you can process it using PowerShell. In the background, all these tools use Analysis Services Management Objects, which is AMO, to actually do the processing. So instead of doing this, we can actually write our own .NET application, combine it with our own solution that we have to process the data. That's another option to look at. So now that we have the data available, what's the next thing we need to do is, how do we automate this? Now, nobody wants to go ahead and manually process something on a daily basis. There has to be an automation available. So in our on-prem environment that we have, we usually use SQL Server integration services where we have analysis services processing task to do this, or we usually use a SQL Server agent job where we have an XMLA script to actually do the process. Now, both these work fine, and there's no problem with it. But when it comes to an Azure solution, many of us have multi-factor authentication enabled. Now, with that being said, it's going to be quite difficult to actually get a prompt to confirm your authentication or approve your authentication using a PIN or your phone or whatever else it might be. So with that being said, it's difficult to use a SQL Server agent job and integration services to actually accomplish this task, specifically to Azure Analysis. So Microsoft has few services available in Azure called as Azure Automation Account and Azure Functions. Now, the Azure Automation Account can be used and can be executed via PowerShell. So you can use the same PowerShell available in your on-prem to actually process the database in Azure AS. Whereas Azure Functions is a little bit different. There are two types of Azure Functions that, there are multiple types, but there are two types that we have used, which is basically a timer trigger and a HTTP request trigger. So a timer trigger is nothing but you create, you set the code, .NET code of what you're going to do, and it's going to run it basically as a function. You can schedule it at any time you want, and it will run. Whereas a HTTP request trigger is nothing but it's going to wait for a GET request or a POST request to reach the function to then trigger the processing. So both these ways can be used to accomplish the same task. So I'm going to show you a demo on these two functions because I'm pretty sure everybody has gone through integration services and SQL agent as it's been used a long time. So okay. So most of the tasks I'm going to do today are going to be using PowerShell commands. Okay, so the first thing I want to show is how do we process a table? This is actually a very simple script that we can use. The code is very simple. All it requires is first you log into your Azure AS account, and then you pass the server name, database name, and the table name, along with what type of refresh you would like to do. So I've actually added a little bit more functionality over here. It's nothing but to check if there are any errors, to display the errors, or otherwise to mention that it's success. Okay, so before we actually do this, to actually run PowerShell commands, there are two commands that we would need to use. There are two modules we need to import, actually. So these are nothing but your Azure Analysis Services model and your SQL Server model. So the Azure Analysis Services model is used for controlling or accessing your services in Azure, like starting, stopping, pausing, then creating a new one, adding accounts. That's what it's going to be used for. Whereas your SQL Server module is going to be used for any database related activity, adding roles, processing, and so on. So if I have to run this query, PowerShell. Okay, so I tested all this out and it didn't prompt me for authentication, but I guess it took a long time, so that token timed out. Anyway. Okay, so the processing was successful. Now the point over here is that you're going to be questioning is, again, even if you're running this one, it prompted me for authentication. So how do we get around this authentication request? So so to use an Azure function or to use a automation service account, we need to have something called as a application in Azure or a service principal account. I've already created an application in Azure, and this is what the application is. It's nothing but a simple registered application. So it's nothing but a simple registered application to basically authenticate against the service. So this application is going to do all the authentication. We are going to give this application permissions in analysis services to actually read the data and access the data. And this is the account that we're going to be using for our processing as well. Okay. So this is basically our application. It's nothing but a simple application that doesn't have anything in it. It's just a registered application to perform authentication. That's about it. Okay. Based on that, we actually generate a secure password and we create a service principal account. Now I've already created a service principal account, and every application can have just one service principal account. So instead, I'm going to run this to give me the service principal account. Okay, so this is the application ID which I've created. And this is the service principal ID that we have. Okay, so let me go ahead and try to process a database using the automation account that we have. So what we're doing over here, so we're using the app ID, which is what we have for the service principal name. Okay, then I'm putting the password, which is a key that we would generate for the app ID. Okay, so it's a secure key from Azure. And we are using the tenant ID of the, our Microsoft tenant itself. Now, I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, so we got an error message over here. I'm not sure if you're able to see it or not, but it's basically the AdventureWorks database does not exist on the server. Why this failed is because on my analysis services server, I haven't given this Azure account, Azure app account, proper permissions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to security, add, and search for the account, which is Azure AS Auto. Okay, it's interesting. Okay, otherwise I will do a manual entry. It's not a problem. Okay, guessing something went wrong over here with this account. Interesting. Okay, anyway, so when we use the Azure Active Directory account, it will actually do the processing over here. Okay, I'm going to skip that part of it. I'm not sure what happened over there. So anyway, now that this is done, let's look at how we can set this up with functions. Okay. So, okay, instead of functions, let's go to an automation account. So I've already created an automation account, but I'll show you how we can do it. It's, sorry about that. Okay, so right now it's just a dummy automation account I've created. I haven't done anything else with this yet. What we're going to do first is, so to run an automation account, we're going to use PowerShell. Okay, so to use PowerShell, we need to use certain modules. So all these modules are already loaded within the Azure gallery available, the module gallery. So we're going to just select it. And import it. Okay, that's one for the SQL Server module, and then you have the Analysis Services module. Okay, now that we have a module set up correctly, we need to basically create a job. Okay, so not a job. Over here, a job is nothing but like a run book. Okay, this is what our code is going to be like. So when we use a run book, we're creating a new one, and we're going to give it for Azure AS. And the type of the run book is going to be PowerShell. Okay, so this will create a new run book. And it will give us a PowerShell window to edit it. So I'm going to use this code. Now, I know that this is not going to work, but okay. So this is the code available, but this might not work properly because firstly, we don't have the right modules. So I'm going to import the modules. And we can't get the content this way. So instead, what I've already created is I've created two variables where we can actually get the content. Now, these variables are actually dynamic variables that can be set or get. Okay. So okay. Now, when I save this, and we'll go to test. Now, this is not going to work. It's going to fail with the database. Again, the database name does not exist, which is fine. But we'll actually see the code that runs, and it shouldn't give us any other error message other than that.
Kane.
Yep. It will
Sorry
take
to
5
interrupt.
minutes more.
Sure, that's fine.
Yep.
Just want to let you know. All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so while this is going on, let me go to the portal. And I'll show you, I'll walk you through a process of functions and how they work. Okay, this is currently running. Okay, it completed, but it failed with the database name does not exist. That's fine. You can ignore that. Okay, so let's move on to functions. So I've already created an Azure function available. Okay. So over here, we have two types of functions which I spoke about. One is the timer trigger and one is the HTTP. So the timer trigger is simple. I've used a .NET code over here to basically, I've created a connection string where it's stored in the web.config, which I'll show you how to access it. I'm connecting to the service and I'm updating the database. And I'm setting the database object and I'm requesting a refresh of type full for the AdventureWorks database. Once it's done, it'll disconnect. It's as simple as this. So if I click on run, don't worry, this will actually work. This uses a different connection string than the other one. Okay, so it completed successfully and the duration it took was about 24 seconds. If I go to the database, okay, so last data refresh was at 4:03 p.m., which is just now. Okay, so that worked perfectly as expected. Now let's look at the Azure HTTP function. So this again is a .NET code. With what we are doing is we have a async task with the HTTP request. Okay, so in the task, what I've done is I'm looking for a keyword called process, which I'm setting. And if the process is equal to true, I'm going to go ahead and basically do a process of the AdventureWorks database. So this part of the code didn't change. What changed is checking for what parameters we're going to be passing. So how do we actually execute this particular? So there are different ways. If you have an application, you can authenticate using Azure Active Directory. You can set it to anonymous. But in our case, what I'm doing is that I'm actually using a function key. So I have an authorization code available, which we are going to be using to query, connect to the database and process it. Okay. Now, if you look at the code that I've written, it needs a process command. So process needs to be equal to true. So I'm putting an ampersand, process equal to true. Okay. So I got a result that says process was successful. And that's basically over here, which is a logic we have where it returns process was successful if it was successful. And if I go to the database, it should be updated to the latest. Oh, okay, looks like it's cached. So the HTTP function, just to note, it's actually a asynchronous task and not a synchronous task. So it will not wait for it to complete. I've had few cases open with us where the data or the processing takes a long time, and there's a firewall or a gateway that actually closes connections after 30 minutes or after 1 hour. So this was a method that we used to actually work around that, where you don't have to keep the request active. It'll run it and it'll forget about it. Okay. So yeah, this covers the different automation processes available in Azure Analysis Services and how we can process the data. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Manoj before we
Thanks,
take.
Kane.
Yeah.
Yep. So I would request the attendees to post your questions in the Q&A panel, and Kane and Khushboo will be happy to take it. Just a few quick slides before Kane starts answering the questions here. I would like to quickly walk you through the pre-conference training days that are available at the conference this year. The first one is Troubleshooting and Optimize SQL Server Like a Pro by Dmitry Kotkovich. He's a Microsoft Certified Master from US. And we have Sunil Agarwal talking about how to migrate your on-premise database to Azure SQLDB as well as managed instance. Reza, again, a data analysis and BI expert from New Zealand and also a data platform MVP. He'll be doing a Power BI from rookie to rockstar. Dr. Leila Atati, data scientist and MVP from New Zealand again. She's doing two pre-cons. The first one is on leading edge data science with Microsoft tools. Andy Leonard, the world-renowned SIS expert, he'll be doing a day of intelligent data integration with SIS and Azure Data Factory. Madan Gajendran and his team, the Cosmos DB team, will be doing a full-day workshop on Cosmos DB. The second pre-con by Dr. Leila Atati is building intelligence applications using the Microsoft AI platform. If you're really serious about R, this is a session for you. The data science expert from UK, Steph Lockie, she's doing a full day training on practical R for everyone. Sanjay Mishra and his team, the DataCat team, will be doing a full day training on how to build a scalable data architecture in Azure. Joey and Denny are coming back this year again. Joey will be doing a full day pre-con on Linux for SQL Server DBAs. Peter Myers, who has been a very popular speaker last year, is coming back again and doing a full day training on Zero to Analysis Services. And Denny, again, he's doing a pre-con on high availability and disaster recovery. Please do visit dps10.com to get more information on which pre-cons are happening on which days. And also, please do drop us a line if you need any help or talking to your manager or company, or if you have any more questions at contact@dps10.com, or you can reach us directly on the numbers here. And I'll quickly hand over to Kane. There's a question in chat window.
can I get today's training demo material for
Oh,
AS?
okay.
Yeah, okay.
This is
Yeah,
more
we'll be
question
uploading
which
all
are
the.
for us. Yes, so we'll be sharing the slides and all the other material which the speakers will provide us, and also we are recording this webinar, so this will be uploaded on DataPlatformGeeks.com. All right, if there are no more questions, then yes, there's a question that popped in just now. Any optimization tips?
Yeah, any optimization tips regarding what? That's the main thing.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's a very
Bala,
broad topic. Yeah, let's, if he can maybe send an email or text us, so that's fine. I can pick it up.
Yeah, so you can also drop the question on the Facebook group, and we'll be happy to help you with that. But be more specific, because this is a more wider topic. So, all right, thank you, Kane, and thank you, Khushboo, for taking your time and presenting a wonderful webinar today. And also thank you all the attendees for joining the webinar and making this a very successful webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.